Alright, this one, Catch-22, I have finally finished reading. Oh my god, I've had this book on the top of my toilet for months. I got like 100, 200 pages in, and it just kind of like got really annoying, and I put it aside, and I just kind of barely read it. And then I finished all these books before Christmas. I'm like, I'm going to fucking finish this thing by the end of the year, so I just started cramming it. And I got through it tonight, and it is weird. I gave it like a 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Did not like it at all, but there was things about it I liked, but it's like, it's just weird. Also, just before we even get into what the book is about, it has this inscription on it. I don't know if this is like all the books have this, or this is an actual inscription. I can't tell if it's printed on there or if somebody wrote it with an ink pen. I think somebody wrote this from an ink pen because it's got a date on it, but it doesn't make any fucking sense. It says Aaron. There's nobody in the book named Aaron. To go with a story of bravery, keep perspective with the story of a coward. Which, it's about this guy named Yossarian who's a coward. Given on Christmas Day, in quotation marks, February 27th, 2002, which is not Christmas Day at all. Then it says, from your brother and sister-in-law, Mr. and Mrs. Milo Minderbinder, which that's a character in the book. He's a guy who's like he's like a businessman, and he's like trading all these different kinds of foods and goods around the world, and he's like the mess officer, and I don't even know why you would want to be named after that. Like, what? Who did this? Who gave this to their brother-in-law or their brother on February and calling it Christmas? It don't make no fucking sense. Anyway, what's the book about? It is this the right? Yeah. There was a book when I was in elementary school called Sideways Stories from Wayside School about all these weird fucking kids in this school that it didn't make no sense. They were all like weirdos. Every chapter was like, this one's about this kid, and the next chapter was like, this is what this kid's deal is, and like, this is why this guy's weird. And that's what most of this is. This is like every chapter. There's like, here's a chapter called Hungry Joe, and here's one called The Texan. There's Chief White Half-Oat, and Dr. Nika, and Kid Sampson, and Milo Minderbinder, and then there's one about Major, who, that's another running theme in the book, is that there's a lot of fucking repetition. If you've ever seen the Abbott and Costello routine, like who's on first, why is on second, or what's on third, and all this kind of bullshit, that's what this is. It's like a really long running joke. Like, every time somebody says something, the other person will say the exact same thing back to them. Like, oh, did you mean this? Did I mean this? Blah, 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 blah. It's annoying. I'm trying to find like a good example of it. There's a bunch of them. Anyway, that's why it's so hard to get through. The book is like 2 or 3 times longer than it needs to be. Because all this back and forth. If you haven't seen the movie, go watch the movie, because the movie is way better than the book. It's about this guy Yossarian. He's a bomber in World War II in Italy, because they're like bombing the south of France, I guess. So a lot of the times they're like hanging out on the beach, and he's like there's a lot of nudity, there's a lot of whores, and there's a lot of like people just like doing stuff that by today's standards would be very inappropriate. There's like, so I don't understand why when I was in high school, a teacher recommended this to me. He said, oh, you should probably read this. This is something you'd right up your alley. And there's like orgies in it. And there's like this Nately's whore. She's like this woman who he's like fucking her and stuff. And then her kid sister, who's like 12, will come in also naked and jumps in the middle of them and like hangs out with them. And then he has to like get rid of her and stuff. And then like Nately gets killed. Yossarian goes and tells Nately's whore. She freaks out and like tries to kill Yossarian with a knife, and like he keeps like fighting her off. He finally gets away from her, goes all the way back to base, because that's in Rome, and he's in like I forget what the name of the place is called. And then like she shows up there, she chases him down with his bread knife, trying to stab him, Like, he ends up, like, every time he tries to get away from her, she ends up, like, she's, like, right outside of his door and tries to stab him. And then, like, he gets another guy, like a pilot, and they stuff her into a plane, and they kick her out of a plane with a parachute. Because this one can get rid of her. And she comes back at the end of the book, and she, like, tries to stab him again. Like, it doesn't make no sense. Why would you do that? It's stupid. And then there's this scene where, if most people probably don't read this far into it, because a lot of people just, like, give up and they quit. But, like, the Kid Samson guy, he's, like, on this raft. There's this guy, McWatt, who's a pilot, who's always, like, buzzing them. He'll fly right over their tent, like, get super low to the ground. And, like, Kid Samson's on a raft, and he tries to, like, buzz him, and Kid Samson tries to jump up and touch the plane, and the propeller cuts him in half, and everybody's, like, swimming, and they're all like, oh, God! And they, like, rush back off to the beach. And then they try to, like, his legs wash up on shore, and they all, like, peek at it, and then they don't want to, like, admit that it's there. And it's like, so then, oh, fuck, that's so stupid. So McWatt, they're looking at the plane, and they're like, why is McWatt climbing? He keeps going higher and higher. Because he's got, like, 2 or 3 other guys in him. And he's like, who's up there with him? It's like, well, this guy, and Doc Danica. And Doc Danica's like, I'm not up there, I'm right here next to you. And they just ignore him. So then McWatt flies into the side of a mountain and kills himself, and the other 2 guys parachute out. And he's like, oh no, everybody died except McWatt and Doc Danica died. And like, Doc Danica's like, right, I didn't die, I'm right here. And they won't look at him, and they just ignore him. And then it becomes this running joke about, like, oh, we're just going to pretend you're dead because it's too much paperwork to, like, change your status now. They're just sitting here talking. Like, he's not already dead. Nobody's done any paperwork yet. What are you talking about? So then, like, they stop paying him, and they tell his wife he died, and, like, he's going to have his temperature checked, and the doctors are saying your temperature's a little bit low. And then they say, that makes a lot of sense since you're dead, that your temperature would be colder. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not dead. I'm right here. It's like, it's stupid. It's stupid shit like that. The whole fucking book. And then you got this Colonel Cathcart guy who keeps, like, raising the number of missions you have to do before you can go home. It starts out like 20 or 30, and it goes to like 50, and then 55. By the end of the book, it's like you got to do 70 or 80 missions. And they keep completing the missions, and then, like, right before they get all their stuff packed, and then he changes it before they can leave just to keep them there, and it's just, it's a fucking mess. And then the whole Catch-22 thing, if you haven't seen the movie, if you are willing to fly these missions on these bombing runs, then you have to be crazy. So if you're crazy, they can dismiss you from service because you're insane, and they can, like, send you home. So Yossarian is a big coward, and he doesn't want to die because he's flown like 50 of these fucking missions. He knows he's about to die because he's already, like, had to circle back on one mission because he missed a bombing target. He's seen, like, his friend die from, like, flak, and, like, a bunch of other people just getting blown out of the sky next to him. He's like, I'm going to die up here, and he's freaking out. And he's like, well, if you ask to be sent home, then that proves that you're not crazy, which means you have to fly the missions. But if you fly the missions, then you're crazy, so you have to be sent home. But you can't ask to be sent home, and the doctor's not going to just, like, declare him crazy because he wants him to keep flying the mission, so it's like a Catch-22. And then there's, like, all these other Catch-22s, which they don't know if it's even a real rule because they can't show them. It's just fucking weird, dude. But mostly it's just a bunch of, like, jokes. A lot of repetitious shit. Wait, I think I just saw one that was really repetitious. Here's Milo Minderbinder talking about how he's going to, like, start flying these missions and somebody else needs to take over. So he's talking about these, like, animal hides, and he says, look after the hides. The hives? The hides. The hides? The hides. In Buenos Aires, they have to be tanned. Tanned? In Newfoundland, and shipped to Helsinki, NMIF before the spring thaw begins. Everything to Finland goes NMIF before the spring thaw begins. No money in front? Guess Colonel Cathcart? Good, Colonel, you have a gift, sir. And then there's the cork. Starts talking about all these different things that gotta be shipped around. Here's this, what's fair is fair. What's fair is fair. They can take turns, sir. It's just like, everything is repetitive. It's so annoying. If this guy wasn't already dead, then he would need to be shot. The guy that wrote this. I mean, there were some really annoying ones too. Right around the beginning. I can't find it now that I need to. Okay, here we go. What are you waking me up for? Whimpered Colonel Corn. They captured Bologna during the night, sir. Is the mission cancelled? What are you talking about, Black? Colonel Corn growled. Why should the mission be cancelled? Because they captured Bologna, sir. Isn't the mission cancelled? Of course the mission is cancelled. Do you think we're bombing our own troops now? What are you waking me up for, Colonel Cathcart? Whimpered to Colonel Corn. They captured Bologna, Colonel Corn told him. I thought you want to know. Who captured Bologna? We did. Colonel Cathcart was overjoyed, for he was relieved of the embarrassment commitment to bomb Bologna without blemish to the reputation of valor he had earned by volunteers men to do it. General Dreidel was pleased with the capture of Bologna too, although the General noticed for what he not telling about it. It's just like over and over again. It's just like Bologna. It's like fuck off. It just drives you crazy. Here's a guy who like keeps sending out these letters, and he keeps signing Washington Irving instead of his own name because he doesn't want people to know who's sending it or something like that. I can't remember what the whole deal was. It's like people just get obsessed with little minutia too. Like, oh, I just want to send letters all day. That's my thing. And then Major. His first, middle, and last name is Major, and his rank is Major, so that's what he's called. Major. He is like, people want to see him because he's like the high-ranking guy, and he doesn't want to see anybody, so he's like, he'll only take people during the hours of 11 to 12, but then that's his lunch break. So whenever he goes on lunch break, he like jumps out the window of his tent, and then the guy says, oh, you can go see him now, and they go into his office, he's not there, and he's like, he's not there. He's like, yeah, he's never there at this time. That's the only time he sees people. So it's like a Catch-22. It's like, it's just stupid shit like that. It's just, the whole book is just a bunch of dumb jokes like that. There's no real plot to it. It's just like the Wayside Stories. It's like a bunch of different fucking people with their weird, stupid shit. And then there's a bunch of fucking people hanging around naked and having orgies, and then he's like, Usarian's like groping the shit out of this nurse, and he's always like pretending like he's dying or he's sick to get out of flying combat missions, and like, it's just real sick. It's stupid. So I don't recommend it. I mean, I kind of see why it exists, and I see why people maybe call it classic literature, but like, high schools shouldn't be recommending this to people. Like, this is not, I don't know, there's nothing redeeming about it really. It's other than like, you can see what this one weirdo Joseph Hiller's comedy style was like. Other than that, I mean, maybe you'll learn a little bit about World War II and like the Mediterranean areas that you don't really hear about that much. But like, what are you getting out of this? It's like redemptive. It's just a stupid joke. I'll tell you another classic one that everybody I think said that I would probably like is A Clockwork Orange. Might want to check that one out. I think there's a few others. I'm trying to think. I really need to like add more classic literature to my. Man, I never like them though. I never liked classic literature. Lord of the Flies is pretty good so far. Animal Farm I don't know, but 1984 that would be a good one. What's the one? War of the Worlds, maybe that one. Some people count Dune as classic literature. I don't know if I would say that one. Somebody even had a list that had The Shining as classic literature. I wouldn't really call them that. Anyway, I'm glad I finally got this thing read. I actually have the sequel to this, which has some of the same characters and some new characters, called Closing Time. But I'm not about to start on that bullshit. There's going to be more bullshit like this. I'm scared of it.